Hi and welcome to the Rags to Riches show with myself, Terry Blackburn. Now today's guest is a very good friend of mine, Ian Preston. This episode, trust me, will be massively inspiring and there will definitely be some lessons in this episode. This man sitting in front of us, huge wealth of experience in multiple different industries, hugely experienced in property, so a lot of the property investors listening, you'll definitely learn something from this one. To give you an idea of Ian's CV and background, estate agency and letting agency, a prop tech business, architectural business, financial services, land and deal sourcing, construction, and check this out for a heading, he's been involved in several £billion worth of property transactions through his estate agents, Preston Baker, based in Yorkshire. So there'll be plenty to learn from this episode, I'm sure. So thank you for coming on the show, Ian Preston.
Great to be here, Terry. Thank you very much.
No problem. We're in one of his lovely Airbnbs in York at the moment.
Yeah,
really lovely property, really lovely. So what we like to do on the show, Ian, we like to talk about, first of all, the three parts of your career so far. Firstly, being a little bit about how it started for you, how you got into business. The middle bit is the juicy bit, any key highlights, and I know there's plenty for yourself. Key moments, key deals, key moments in your business that really either elevated you or you made a few quid from. And then another interesting part with you would be what the future holds for yourself, your businesses, and property investing in general. We're going to touch on AI as well, which I know you love that topic. So if you could start, Ian, just by telling us a little bit about how it started for you and how you got into business.
So, as you can tell from my broad Geordie accent, I'm actually from Newcastle, Terry, and I grew up in Tyneside. I went to university for 1 year, which, as you probably already worked out, didn't end particularly successfully in Leeds. I came back to Newcastle with my tail between my legs, and I got a job in an estate agency at Keith Pattinson's, and they gave me a start when no one else would. I started there. After about a year, I decided I wanted to move up to a bigger company, so I moved to Bears to Eves, as it was then, then moved to Wickham, and started my career in an estate agency from there. I went through that till about 24, at which point I was the youngest regional manager in Countrywide, which was at that time the biggest estate agency in the UK. So I moved down to Yorkshire at 24 years old to go and run this region of the three worst Bears to Eves offices with the three worst, what they were called Renton's Countrywide offices. They merged them together after the Bradford and Bingley acquisition. I turned that around. They were the most improved region within Countrywide, and that took me all the way through to 2008 when the financial crash hit. At which point James, my cousin, was working with me, running our Bradford office, and I was looking at, after that point, 10 offices from Bradford across to Pocklington, York, Selby, places like that. And they were going to close the York office as part of the cuts which were needed. And to put it in context, our business dropped by 80% overnight. So, if we were doing 100 grand, that reduced to 20. It was complete lights out. So big cost cuts had to be made. And I submitted a plan to my managing director, Mark, who now works with me. He does, he works.
With you or for you?
Well, for me, but
but
I prefer
it's a better term.
I do. But so he works with me now in Yorkshire, and he said to me that we're going to close the York office. And I was like, I think it's a mistake, so I'd like you to go away and reconsider if that's okay. These are the reasons. We've already moved out of the big expensive premises, we've moved into smaller premises, I've already reduced the size of the team, and therefore we're backwards looking at what was happening before, we're not looking at what's happening now. And I said, I appreciate the board, who are down in London, don't know that, but I'd really like to make that representation for me. And he went off, he made the representation, came back and said, no, it's shutting. And I said, well, in that case, I'd like to resign, because I'd like to take that on as a franchise, because I believe that this is a business which has got a future, and I believe in it so passionately that I'd like to prove it. So if you want to shut it, I'll take it. And that was it. So James and I left together, so we were first cousins, and we set up initially as a Countrywide franchisee. We did that for 3 or 4 years. We grew up to 4 offices. In Leeds and York and Selby, and then we got to dial into a phone call with the franchisors, and they said, we're selling the franchise network and we're going to be going to Hunters, and at which point Hunters already existed in all the locations where we were. So we then had to raise some money to buy ourselves out of our franchise agreement so that we could then become fully independent. So we had to then put our hands in our pocket so we spent all this time and money building their brand. They then
so
sold
they could
it.
get the big check.
That's right.
Yeah.
They sold the brand. We were their number one performing franchisee. Hunters wanted to keep us, but we bought ourselves out of our contract and we set up the brand Preston Vape, and we had to do that in 1 month. So we had 1 month to completely rebrand, lost all the brand equity that we built up at York and Selby and Leeds, at which point we set up a financial services business because we wanted to diversify our revenue streams.
Just to jump in there, how old were you and James at this point?
So we were 28 when we set up, so 28, 27 when we set up, and so I guess this was like 3 years down the track, so we were early 30s. I'd probably just had my 4th child by then.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was.
Well, I've got, as the listeners know, I've got 4, and there's not many people I know with more children than me doing the level of stuff, but you're doing more than me in business, and you've got 6
kids.
6.
Yeah. So 21 down to 8.
Fair play. I was just curious when it started because I know you're relatively young, and so it was 27, 28 when you made that jump to the first thing, yeah.
And the thing is, in many ways, it was the worst of times because the market was completely shocked.
Was it still 2008?
Yeah, 2008. So literally, we set up on the 1st of October 2008. So Northern Rock was closing its doors as we were opening ours. Lehman Brothers had just gone down. I mean, it was like full financial crisis. No one could sell houses. But what we did is we took like an elite team with us. And one of the reasons that I believe that I've been able to have some success is because I've always been able to partner with great people. Like no man is an island, you can't achieve anything on your own.
Definitely.
And I always try and hire people better than me. And that's like the number one thing which, as I sort of go through it, there's a guy called Jim Collins who's written books like Good to Great, Great by Choice.
Yeah.
And he talks about the leader's job being the job to get the right people on the bus, and then step 2, put them in the right seats. And certainly the older I've got and the more mistakes I've made, the more I realise that fundamentally, if you get that bit right and you surround yourself with awesome people, even if you don't have a great idea, even if you don't have wonderful skills yourself, if you surround yourself by amazing people, you can do amazing things. And so we had a really elite team, it was great. And as we expanded, that elite team got diluted, and actually business became harder. We set up a financial services business in 2012, a mortgage brokerage. We set up a land and new homes business in 2014, which James went on to run. We won various awards at the Estate Agency of the Year Awards, including ultimately the best branch in the UK, as judged by Rightmove out of 26,000.
Just on that point, just to the listeners, that's you beat every estate agent in the country, all the big players, Reeds, Rains, Your Move, all of them. Yeah. And what was it based upon that title, that award that you won? How was that measured? Was that voted for by other people? Was it voted on? Was it measured on stats? Stats.
So stats and mystery shopping were the 2 measures. So effectively, they mystery shopped every single office in the top 20%. So they ruled out how many houses did you put on the market and what were the outcomes for those customers? What price did you sell it for? Was it a good price? Lettings, the whole job lot. And at that point, 7 offices that we had 5 of them in the top 11 in the country.
Really?
So out of 26,000 branches which were assessed.
That is impressive. Fair play. And sorry to jump in. How long had you been in business up until that point when you won that? Because that was a few years back, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was 2016, 2017. So I guess what's that? We've probably been in business by that point for about 8 years.
And you've beaten companies that have been around 20 plus. Yeah. Fair play. Fair play.
It was all right. I mean, one of the things which we discovered is I'm quite analytical, logical rather than emotional. If you looked at those sort of disc type charts, I'm on the logical side. And so we experimented with loads and loads of different ways of marketing houses to see if marketing method A or B sold houses for more. So we came up with this thing, which I'm not very good at branding, it's called Property Launch, we still use it today. But effectively what we discovered is if you don't let anyone view a house for the first 10 days of marketing, and everyone has to go on the Property Launch event, if that's what happens, then that sense of competition is created, the sense of urgency is created. They see other people, and you make sure
so like an open house thing, the American style.
That's it.
Yeah. And
the key thing was you don't let anyone view beforehand. You have this marketing window where you just hammer the marketing, create the urgency. And what we discovered, having tested it over 4,000 times on 4,000 sales, was that it sold on average for 3.8% more and 46 days quicker. And so effectively,
than the traditional
method. And so that was with the same people, in the same town, in the same market, because it was us. We were comparing ourselves with method A and method B, and that was the reason that we were able to get into that consistently to that top tier, because we A/B tested this method and just gradually iterated. And like I have a dashboard which I have on my phone, which shows me what the different outcomes are based on how many days you delay marketing. Because what we discovered is in the post-COVID years, like 2021, when the market was mental, you actually had to shorten the marketing period to sub 5 days. Whereas when the market's slow, you have to lengthen it to 13 to 15 days to be able to get the critical mass of people there, but not have people hanging on too long that they've gone and bought something else. And so
why is it you think that hasn't been adopted by other agents nationwide?
I mean, when it happened, one of two things happened. Either people mimicked, or they told their customers it was rubbish. And even the ones who mimicked, after a while, flexed it, and then they went back because it was easier. Because it's easier. Because you've actually got to explain to a customer, actually, I'm not going to show you any people your house for 10 days. They go, but Ian, I found a house. I've actually seen something that I want to buy. So you're not going to show me my house? No, that's right. Because I know that you've got a greater chance of selling within 10 days if you delay for 10 days the first viewing. And that takes a certain amount of conviction and strength. And that's the reason.
And it's different, and people don't like things that are a little bit out there or different. People don't like change, do they? And maybe it's because buyers' habits or sellers' habits are so stuck in the ways or a little bit rigid. They're like, well, why would I try this? What happens if it doesn't work? What happens if I wait 10 days and then nobody turns up?
Absolutely.
But if you've got data to show that and you're winning awards based upon a method, then
that's it.
But it's, you know what customers are like. You're still going to get that. But that's fascinating. I didn't actually know that. It just baffles my brain that why others wouldn't adopt that. And do people do it? Do you still do it now?
Yeah, still do it now.
Still do every sale that is.
I will not allow anyone to do it any other way.
And on the day, is that an all day thing? And you've just got a staff member there, obviously showing them round, and they're just...
So 2 hours, 3 hours. So
2-3 hour window, and that's it.
Well, you want it to be packed. You want it to be packed. You want it to be like, I'm really sorry, Terry, you and Louise are going to have to wait outside because the last couple's already here. And then you see a happy little couple walking out, and already she's kicking you, going...
We need to offer tonight if we want it. We'll over ask. Did you find that you were achieving over asking price and maybe breaking ceilings for values in certain areas as well?
100%. So we still on average sell houses for over the asking price, even in today's market. And that's because we create competition. I've had properties where there was only one person who attended a property launch and they offered over the asking price because they didn't know that they were the only person.
No one else was
going to
yeah.
So their perception was that they loved it. It ticked all their boxes. Shit, there's other people who are going to be looking at it. So
you're building suspense, you're building a little bit of urgency, you're building a little bit of scarcity, as in if we don't offer, then it's fascinating that. And something you said there, which I've always tried to do in business, and I think it's so many people still don't do it, is test and measure things.
Yep.
So like some of the guys that I coach, for example, they're in various different businesses, and let's say if they're using 5 marketing strategies to get leads, and they might be doing well financially, but I say to them, right, so which one of these 5 is the best? I'm not too sure. Or which one's got the best ROI, or what's your conversion on this one or that one? They're not sure because they're doing maybe 5 different strategies and they are making money and getting business in, they don't know which one works the best.
Yep.
But the only way to determine that is test and measure
100%
different things and literally get them on. If you're logical and analytical, I'm sure you love spreadsheets and working out which one works best. And then once you find the one, it's normally only 1 or 2, isn't it? And then really honing on that strategy. And I think it's such a simple concept, but a lot of people just don't seem to do that, right?
Yeah. I mean, I can tell you how much it costs us to generate a valuation from every stream, which we have. And not only that, what the propensity is for that person to pay upfront or to pay at the end. I mean, there's loads to be chat about it, so I don't want to So anyway, so we've gone on various awards. Quite recently, I moved to an entirely self-employed model for estate agents, so a brokerage model now. So people are now operating under the Preston Baker brand, which has been really interesting.
So you went from everybody employed in the offices, traditional, to then a self-employed model, Yeah,
and we did that, started in November of last year. We've now migrated, we tested and we measured, we saw what the outcomes were. I had people last month who were earning 20,000 quid just before Christmas. Like, life-changing amounts of money for selling houses. And we're making more money as well. So it's
win-win.
Yeah, it's been awesome. We set up a land promotion business. We've got the architecture practice, the planning department, got a property maintenance company. So we've done loads of stuff, but effectively I've got two major audience groups: home movers, people who want to move home, and SME developers, so people who want to build anywhere between 1 and 5 houses. We've just launched a new network called the Developers Network Association, which is a membership group where we bundle up architecture services, planning services, we find your land, and then we do a peer-to-peer networking group where people can come and attend, sit in the room and learn from other developers who've actually then moved on. And so obviously from our point of view, that's great because it means that we build a deeper relationship with our customers, we understand more what they want, and from their point of view, they can learn from other people. And also, if you imagine, if you're a big builder, you can afford to have a town planner, you can afford to have an architect, you can afford to have someone to go and source your land for you. But effectively, we just bundle those together and give it to the little guys, as well as giving them a land pipeline of new bits of land which are coming on, which I'm sure you could talk to James about, all that sort of stuff. So SME developers, home movers, they're my big audience groups, and then of course we've got the software company.
Wow, could go many directions in this conversation because I know that I'll really scratch the surface, to be quite honest. But give us maybe 2 real key moments and the lessons that maybe that have came from them running all these companies, because you're running 10 plus companies, I think. God knows how many staff, multiple locations, slight different niches and industries. Is any key moments that you think back where like this happened and that really blew the business up, or really a lot of money from a certain thing, or there was a real big lesson that maybe the listeners could learn from?
I'll choose one from both camp, if that's
okay,
right.
Great.
One from the top and one from the bottom.
Great.
So I'll talk to you about the biggest mistake I ever made and how much money it cost me.
Okay. Let's go.
So post-COVID, the market went mental. And what I decided was that I was going to restructure the whole business, and I was going to silo. So I was going to break the job down into individual component parts and create specialists. Because everyone was dealing with huge volume, and we talked about hunters, farmers, and unicorns. Okay.
I've heard hunters and farmers, but the unicorns I'm interested in.
Okay, right. So for those people who haven't heard of hunters and farmers, a hunter would be you, Terry. You are the Mad Max of hunters.
Find business,
go.
Enthusiasm,
And you need a farmer, don't you, to help
to service
and keep your promises.
Definitely.
But you make promises, you need someone to keep your promises. And a unicorn is someone who can do both. Okay? And of course, trying to find unicorns is pretty hard.
Yeah.
So what I discovered is I'd always been looking for my whole life for unicorns. Because I had these salespeople who were great at doing the deals, but would leave a trail of shit behind them. And then I would have these other people who were great at looking after clients. They got really good customer service reviews, but they couldn't sell for shit.
Yeah.
And that was it. And I was like, and I'm always looking for someone who could do everything. And I could think of maybe 5 or 6 in my career that I've come across who could truly do both. So I thought, okay, break it up. Have hunters hunt, have farmers farm. And logic, everyone was like, yes, Ian, that sounds like a great idea, we'll do it. And I was like, right, better restructure. And it worked really well for a period of time, whilst the market was mental. But then something happened. And that was that basically it became not my jobism. In other words, I only do this part of the process, so therefore, even though we're dead and we're really quiet, I'm just going to make my life nice and easy. Because I'm not a generalist who's required to then go and help those with this. So I have people in the service delivery team who wouldn't prospect for new business, even though we were dying, not getting enough new business, because in 2022, in the second half of the year, the market tanked. And suddenly I started losing shit tons of money because I had a massive cost base, huge number of people working for us, well over 100, which certainly in my world was a lot in that one business. And it was flabby, it wasn't nimble, it wasn't agile. And out of that was born this concept of high skill, high tech. And if you could just try and define the strategy for all of the businesses I run, it's high skill, high tech. I believe that one very well paid, really good person can do the job of 2 or 3 shit people.
Okay.
Yeah? I believe in having fewer people better paid. But of course, if that's what you want, everyone wants to pay their staff more money, don't they? But the truth is that you have to cut costs if you want to adopt that strategy. So therefore, you have to automate and introduce technology to remove what I was giving to the farmers. So the farmer's job has to be automated more to allow highly paid hunters to go and do their job, and that's where the self-employed model and the self-employed theory comes in. So what we want to do is just strip away admin. So every admin in my company is gone. I don't have administrators, because effectively if it's a repetitive, repeatable task, then automate it. Use AI, use automation, spend money on tech to eliminate that job forever, and you'll save yourself a fortune.
Then you can pay your good stuff more.
Correct.
And get the best talent.
That's right, and exactly. And then suddenly, you know, we've got to cherry pick from awesome talent. So the average estate agent working for me now is 85 grand a year.
Really?
85 grand a year.
What's the average, would you say?
25, 30, 35, you know, maybe branch manager level, 40,
so you're
45.
knocking on 3 times.
Yeah.
And you've got less headache with less staff.
Bingo.
And I bet you the better paid ones, the more competent ones, are probably a bit more self-sufficient, and they use their own initiative and they don't need handheld, they'll just crack on, so you probably life's a little bit easier.
Yeah.
As well as making more money, and they're probably not going to go anywhere because they think, well, making 85, why would I go back to 30 down there?
Totally. And
so retention of staff's better as well, that's clever.
Retention's better. So today, the phone call which you saw me making outside the house before, I was on the phone to a lady called Anna who's working in our Selby area, and she's part of what we call a double bubble. So you're either a lone wolf or you're a double bubble. So double bubble is maybe where you've got a natural hunter and farmer who want to pair off together, or alternatively it might be 2 hunters. But Anna has now hired her first full-time member of staff.
And she's self-employed?
She's self-employed. She's now employed someone. So actually what we've realised is the really good ones, they're like, well, I don't want to be doing the viewings and showing the houses. Actually, the better thing for me to do is now pay someone else to do that so I can go out and win more business. And the other big thing we did is that, because I could talk about fees for agents. So fees, so I've got 4 core values. Premium, attitude, community, energy. Yeah? So attitude and energy are the characteristics that I need in every person I work with. Great attitude, positive, can-do, solutions focused. Not moaners, not energy sappers. Energy, everyone has to work hard. Those are basically the 2 tickets that you need to play the game. Premium is a nod to the philosophy that we always want to charge more for doing more. Yeah? That's it. Every business I've got will charge a premium fee for delivering hopefully amazing results. And finally, community, and we don't want people who break up the team. We want, we do want team players. So to premium, I don't like to discount fees. We charge probably 40% more than our competitors in terms of the fees which we charge, but of course we create value through profit structure.
Yeah, definitely.
So the question is, should you discount? So if someone says to you,
a lot of the time it's a race to the bottom,
that's right,
isn't it? When you discount, when you're competing on price, value becomes irrelevant, doesn't it? When you're competing on price, and it's not the best place to be. Let's be honest. If you're up there on premium, on value and price, then you're winning, aren't you?
So most people would say that the basis of any relationship is trust. Yeah. So imagine that I come into your house and I sit down with you and I say my fee's 2% plus VAT, and you go, Ian, someone else has already offered me 0.9, and I go, do you know what, Terry? Because I like you, I'll do it for 1.5. Am I building trust with you by pitching you at 2% and then immediately dropping my pants to 1.5? No, in fact, it demonstrates that I tried it on.
Lack of trust.
Correct.
It's literally the opposite, isn't it?
Exact opposite. So we don't discount, instead we trade. So one of the things I'd ask any business person to think about is, what are your tradables? So, I won't discount, but for example, I might take something away. So I'm not going to do it for less, but if you do want to pay less, then maybe we could take some of the service away. Yeah. And the simplest way we found to do this is to change the point at which we get paid. So hypothetically, if you think about this agency, we do the work up front and we get paid at the end.
Right at the very end, yeah.
If you go to a lawyer, they charge you as they do the work. You go to the dentist, they charge you as they do the work. Any other service, they charge you as they do the work.
It's up front or it's trenches, it's very rarely the end,
So what we do is we say, we added 20% onto our no sale, no fee charge. We said if you pay 295 quid up front, you can have 20% off, okay? Because you have effectively paid for the listing of your property. We then have a slider where you can slide it to pay everything up front if you want to, or you can pay £1,000 up front, 1,500 quid up front, or £2,000 up front. but effectively you're de-risking it for us, so you can have up to another 20% off. That slider decreases it by another 20%. So the difference is 36% between paying all at the end or paying all up front, and it's the customer's choice. So if they say the fee's too
a bit
much,
of the time wasters as
totally.
well. One of the people that aren't really serious and they never really wanted to sell, they want to test it. It gets rid of them, doesn't it?
That's it. And it's improved our sales rate to 96%.
That's it.
So one of the things, one of the best lessons I ever learned was in that space about tradables. So never discount, but think about what you and your business can trade. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I love that, and I think that applies to any of the business people listening. Think about your own business. And a lot of people fall into that trap, certainly in the early days of setting up a business. It's you just compete on price, don't you?
Yeah.
Just and sometimes you have to get money in and build, but as you get more established, like yourselves, 15 years, you don't want to be competing on price and by offering a little bit of it. Well, if you for this price you're going to get this bit more, this additional service. That then has the same effect, doesn't it? Or taking this away. The only way we can't discount. The only way to get it down is if we don't do this service or that service. And I think you struck a chord there when you said the people that will offer for 2% and then straight away go down to 1.5. You're definitely losing trust, but you're losing a bit of credibility, and then instantly, unfortunately, salespeople have got a bad name, haven't they? Across everything. Maybe it's down to car salesmen or double glazing, who knows. But you become more like that, don't you?
Totally.
You get put into that box of a little bit slimy, a little bit. You're not going to tell the truth. You're maybe just going to wheel and deal and mislead just to get the sale. And I think instantly that'll happen. The second you, and I mean, you know better than me, I bet you most estate agents do that. Is that fair to say?
All, I would say. I mean, like literally, I don't think that, well, okay, that's probably not true. I would say
but over 50%, so with the majority.
More, exactly. And again, if you think about Purple Bricks, and obviously they've declined now to the point where they don't charge anything, but they did have a very clear charging structure, didn't they? They had a clear proposition. They told you how much it was going to be. It was on the website. It was really clear. And from that point of view, they had great transparency. And you've got to give them the nod for that. The problem was the figure wasn't high enough.
Yeah, no, it's fascinating. I think that's a lesson in itself there. Anybody in business, think about whatever your offering or your service or your product is. And next time you get into a conversation about price, hold your ground, stand your ground almost, and say, well, no, it is what it is based on this much value that you're getting. The only way to get it down is if I remove X, Y, Z.
Absolutely right.
And I think that's a much better angle than instantly dropping your price for your service.
There's one more thing I'd say on discounting, which I think a lot of business people don't realise. So imagine that your business makes a 20% margin. If you drop your price by 10%, how much of your margin have you lost?
50%.
That's right. And I know that sounds obvious, but you think 10%, but actually 10%, if you're trading at a 20% margin, half your profit gone.
Something happens with staff, something happens in the market, something happens with overheads, you're gone, aren't you?
That's it. Whereas if you increase your price by 10%, and you say, actually I'm going to put my fees up by 10%, I'm going to put my price of my product up by 10%, and you're making a 20% margin, you can improve your margin by 50%. And you'll never lose as many customers as you think by putting your prices up. I remember talking to my people.
That's a mindset thing, that is.
Totally.
I agree with that, for sure. Yeah. And especially if you're a little bit different like you guys are, and you're doing things and you've got track record, you've got credibility, you've got the track record, you've got the years of experience putting your prices up, it's justified, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think it's when people try and do it either too much or too quick, that's when they can kind of get a little bit caught out, isn't it? No, I love that. I think that applies to loads of different businesses. So what I really want to get into is the subject of AI. So I heard Ian speak at an event, what was it, November last year in London. Really involved in the AI sector, and this subject fascinates me for many reasons. You're very knowledgeable in this field, I would say, and I would love to know your opinion on what AI is going to do to property investors or to property investing as a sort of industry, because a lot of the listeners are involved in property. What do you foresee happening to property investors in regards to AI? Will it affect it? Will it complement? Will it make it better, harder? Any thoughts on what AI will do for property investing would be great.
So there's two different types of AI in terms of like big categories. So first one is predictive AI. So that's where, a bit like the Amazon suggested products, that's predictive AI. Based on what you've done this is what I think you'll like. Yeah. So that's one big category, and then the second big category, which is probably what most people think of now when they think of AI, is generative AI, and that's ChatGPT. If you pay for the subscription and you go to ChatGPT 4, it will make you pictures based on what you type in. So it'll create images, it will create text, it will write LinkedIn posts for you, it'll help you with your marketing, it can do client communications, any and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
And then another example that we were chatting about earlier is about voice cloning as well. That's also generative AI. So the creative stuff, gen, and then the other stuff, predictive. And what I'm interested in particular is how you fuse those two things together. So how you make predictions and then you create content off the back of those predictions, which is then useful and personalised. So to property developers and property investing, the place that AI really works brilliantly is when you're in a high volume environment. Does that make sense? So where AI really comes in is at the top of the funnel. So wherever the top of your funnel is, which is high volume tasks, that's where I try and apply it. So potentially if you're looking at deals, right at the beginning, you're trying to assess them, that's probably the place I would start as a property developer and property investor. And one of the things which I think would be really interesting is for the sort of network which you've got, Terry, is to aggregate people's information about deals which they've done which have done really well, and deals which they've done which have done really badly, and both those successes and failures that we've all got as business people, and then start to look and put that into an AI engine to then be able to identify what are the common threads. So that then,
deals.
exactly, and then what you do is you say, okay, well, this new deal that I'm thinking about doing, just do me a favour, compare it to what's happened before. And even something like ChatGPT 4 has got this functionality. You can, if you organise that into a spreadsheet in Excel or Google Sheets, you drop that into ChatGPT 4, you give it natural language instructions, so you type in what you want it to do, it will do it for you and it will crunch those numbers. And I would think that probably, because I imagine, and again, James does much more property investing than I do, so he sort of does that stuff, and I tend to do the sort of the agency type business. Is that finding your choice of deal is probably the most consequential decision that you will make.
Definitely.
Yeah,
Definitely.
in terms of like whether you make money or you don't.
Yeah.
Do the wrong deal, you can get all of the other bits right. You can get the right finance, you can get the right build cost, blah blah blah. But if you pick the wrong product, that's it. It's over. So
Definitely.
that 100% in the context of property development is where I would go.
I mean, that's a fascinating sort of conversation there, because imagine the deal sources out there, the people that are doing high volume of deals, that if you could feed in, if I'm interpreting what you said correctly, the wins, the good deals that were really profitable against the ones that didn't work and weren't very profitable, you feed that into something like ChatGPT, it would look at the common metrics, whether that's purchase price, location, bedrooms, all of that type of stuff, build cost or type of build, type of kitchen, it could go really quite down. And then look at against the ones that don't work, it could then produce a formula of this is the type of deals that you should be looking for. Yeah. Could you then integrate it into Rightmove and say, right, well, look for these type deals, and then it would spit out, here is your 10 properties that you should be viewing. If that could happen, or if that did happen, like it's going to be a pretty crazy place. If someone's got that to themselves, they're going to find all the deals. But then if they monetize it, commercialize it, and put it out, everyone can then find deals. It's a fascinating.
Well, let me tell you how I implement it. So I mentioned that we've got a software company which effectively provides software to estate agents built on the Salesforce platform. So Salesforce is a multi-billion dollar company.
Yeah, they do everybody's all the big players.
Yeah. McLaren, Heathrow Airport, Santander
Airport as well. They've got everyone.
Everyone's on Salesforce. Yeah. So basically, they do all of the core functionality of a CRM. So you don't have to worry about that, and then you build on top of it using a Salesforce developer to create what you want. So we've created a estate agency, a lettings agency, land in your home software built on the Salesforce platform for the UK market. We're launching it in April. Now, Salesforce has got an engine called Einstein within it. And Einstein is exactly what we just described. So Einstein's got this tool called Prediction Builder, where I put in every property in my database that ever put their house on the market with Preston Baker. And then it looks at all of the variables, all the data points of the person's history. So it might be that they viewed a house with me. And if they viewed a house with me, they might be much more likely to instruct me to sell theirs. That would be logical, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
So we test that hypothesis. And then it gives a little score on each variable about how statistically significant each variable is. So I might find that of the initial 50 data points that I gave it, that 10 of them are irrelevant. So what I do is I take those 10 out and I put 10 more in. And I gradually keep adjusting my model until I've got the most predictive stuff, in terms of those 50 variables, which therefore gives a score next to the next properties which haven't yet put the house on the market to tell me how likely they would be to put it on with us, which therefore means that I can deploy my salespeople to focus on this. Now, the way that we structure our database, and again, I might be about to have half your podcast turned on here, so we're going to talk data. But every single property in Yorkshire exists in my database, regardless of whether or not I've interacted with it. So every house on every street in Yorkshire. So I've got 1 million records of houses. And then what I do is I buy data from a company called 20EA, who are based up in the northeast. And they populate how many bedrooms it's got, what the estimated rental value is, what the estimated sales value is, when it was last sold, so how long that owner's lived in it, EPC rating. So what we can then do is we can then search, and then the other bit of data which I get from them is whether or not it's on the market, how long it's been on the market, when it was last on the market for rent, has it ever been rented out? We can then create a yield for a projected yield for every house which exists. We can identify the ones which are on the market, not on the market, and we can throw all of that into AI and say, right, show me all of the best houses which are on the market currently, which have been on the market longer than 8 weeks, with a yield which is projected at greater than X. Show me every property which has got an EPC rating lower than Y. And so that's how we do it. And then what you do is we've got a concept within the database, which is we mark up who owns those houses. So there's automation that if you book a valuation with me, I then mark you as the owner of that house. If you register as a buyer with a house to sell, I mark you up as the owner of that house. So I've got, of those 1 million properties, 62,000 people that I know who've given me their data who own those houses. So now what I do is, using the predictive AI, I've now worked out the top 1,000 properties. And now what happens is we use Gen AI. So I showed you an example earlier on, which is effectively a text message conversation, all stimulated by ChatGPT. And this is using someone that I've identified as owning the house. I've identified that the house is on the market, and then we've used Gen AI to start a text message conversation with them to ask them if they're happy with their agent. But that could be deployed in the same
industry, into anything.
Into anything. So that could be a DM going out to them saying, hey, we've got a specific person who's interested in buying your house. And by the way, they'd be looking to complete within 4 weeks of their cash. And that could all be done automatically. We can personalise it to that person. It can all be written by ChatGPT. And all of this is automated. So no humans involved in it. And so when you think about that, I think if you're looking at deal sourcing on a big scale, unless you're aggregating data, there'll be companies who crack this, who will just,
it's not if, it's when, isn't it? Yeah.
Totally, but of course those same companies, even though they crack identifying deals, they probably will be selling those deals on to individual investors for them to then pursue. So I imagine that the amount of leads which you could probably buy as an independent property investor will probably be quite great from companies doing stuff like this. I hope that's not too boring.
No, not at all. I love stuff like that. I hope there'll be certain people that maybe switch off. But if you're interested in AI, I think we had a conversation before this started. This is going to affect every industry, and I don't think it's if, it's when. It's maybe a bit morbid this, but it's unstoppable, isn't it? Across any industry, because what will happen is if one person gets a hold of that technology or designs it, they're going to instantly become pretty much the market leader, and they can offer products and services cheaper than anybody else. But then everyone else in that industry, all of the competition, have to then either surrender or compete, and the only way to compete is get the software or get the tech that they've got.
Totally.
But then you apply that to a state agency to invest in, to the stock market, to there's just a car just drove past that window. So just the car industry, every industry, in like you said something when we were chatting earlier about 3 to 5 years, you predict that the world's pretty much going to look very different. Is that your sort of, is that a fair point?
Yeah, I think within a 3 to 5 year time frame, in particular service industries. So basically, if you work in a call centre right now, so your job is to take verbal instructions and to execute something on a database, you're toast. Like, done, finito, gone. And
In 3 to 5 years, you think?
And the rest. You'll be, that is first, you're, first gone, if you're in that sort of industry. You then think administrative jobs, like admin. If you're an admin, there is a computer program which can now do it faster, better, more accurately than you can.
More accurate is a massive point, by the way. We've also talked about this off camera. But like, if you had salespeople or admin people, if salespeople have to follow a process of this is the script, this is the way you handle objections, there's always going to be human error. If an administrator has to copy this bit of data over to here and fill out this form or that form, there's always going to be some human error. But with AI, it's certainly less. They might still make errors, I suppose, but as it advances, that'll be decreased. But it's certainly less than human error, and even now.
Totally.
So accuracy is a massive thing.
So we've run a proof of concept. So this isn't a product we've deployed, but we built it in a non-live environment. So I uploaded all of my training scripts for negotiators that if someone said any objection to wanting to view a house, we gave them a little blurb to go for. So the drive-by is like a classic estate agent objection. It's great, Ian. Yeah, it sounds interesting, but I'll drive by first. I always like to drive by the house before I go viewing. And what we generally say to them, listen, if you go to the trouble of driving by, I've got another viewing at Saturday, so I'll meet you there. I'm going to be there at 10 o'clock. Why don't we meet there? Okay? So we uploaded all of our training data. We uploaded all of our PIQ data. So on a property, there's a thing called
PIQ?
So Property Information Questionnaire.
Okay.
So effectively, when the boiler was last serviced, when the electrics were last done, all this sort of stuff. And so what we did is we then set the AI an objective that its job was to book a viewing, and if the customer objected, to reference this PDF of scripts, and it could answer any question about the house. So we uploaded all the PIQs for 3,000 properties. 3,000 properties. And then the AI said, hey, could you tell me when the boiler was last serviced on 57 Acacia Gardens? No problems, the boiler was last serviced on this date. And by the way, the electrics were done on this date. When would be a great time for you to go and have a look at the property? It sounds like it could be of interest for you. Okay, I was like, well, actually, I don't want to view it just yet. I'd like to drive by the house first. Picked it out straight away and then tried to close.
Really?
Now, imagine a negotiator who costs you £0, who is capable of following your training script every single time.
Accuracy.
365 days a year, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And that is what order taking salespeople are going to be competing against. Now, the question is, where does the human line exist? So there is a human line, isn't there? There is a line at which, we talked about trust being the key component part. So if we, stick in the estate agency context, because where I'm happiest, is if you and I were sat here and we were talking about the marketing of your property, I'm not going to send a robot to do it, and I don't believe I ever would. You want to feel like you have got someone who's going to help represent you to get you the very best possible price for your most valuable asset. That is you having faith in me. But the question is, behind me, where does the human line exist? So is it that I've got...
Probably not that far back.
Not that far back. And so actually, when we're thinking about businesses and business processes, one of the things I've been encouraging people to think about is where does the human line? So rather than thinking about what could AI do, think about what is the thing that only a human can do. What are the parts of my process that I should actually start thinking about? This is an Ian-only job. This is a Terry-only job. What is that? Where is that line? Because once you establish that, then everything else should either, in my opinion, be outsourced or automated. And then, we were talking again off camera about your desire to not have a huge infrastructure of hundreds of people. Again, high skill, high tech. Think about that strategy positioning which I had. I want fewer people, better paid, better skilled, with shit tons of outsourcing and technology.
Only doing the things that humans can do.
That's right. And one of the bits of advice I give to new managers is only do the things that only you can do. That's it. And obviously covering quite a broad concept. I follow a process which Pete Wilkinson, don't know if you ever come across him. He's Okay, so Pete has written a book called Unstoppable, and as a fellow author, you should definitely check it out. But again, it's a book all about the power of focus, fundamentally. And Pete is from south of the Tyne. So don't hold that against him. so Pete's from south of the Tyne, so don't hold that against him. And he operates a system called 135.
Okay.
So 1 is a very clear vision of where it is you want to be. Yeah? Articulated in maybe 5 or 6 sentences, written in the present tense as if you're already there.
Affirmation,
Yeah, so it's the 31st of December 2024, I'm sitting on the beach in Thailand enjoying a well-earned break. My businesses have made over X million this year, blah, blah, blah. So something like that.
Yeah.
And then you break down the 3 core objectives, which are absolutely have to be achieved in order for that vision to be achieved. And then for each one of the core objectives, you follow 5 goals, you create 5 goals. And I tend to make those 30-day goals. So the core objectives remain constant throughout the 1 or 2 year process. 5 goals, and then every week on a Monday morning, I write down 3 things I'm going to do for each goal. So I end up with a to-do list of 45 things to do, which are totally focused on what it is I'm trying to achieve. It's super simple, it fits on 1 page, and it's entirely Pete Wilkinson's, but I follow that and I use it religiously. And whenever I get a bit lost, like shit, what's the next most important thing? Read the vision every morning. I read the core objectives, I understand what the mission is, I know what the actions are, and I crack on.
Love that. I'm big into stuff like that. I'm
Yeah,
definitely going to get that book. I use it's actually in my bag over there. I use This Is My Era planner. It's very similar. Yeah. Just something you can get off Amazon, and you set your to-do list for the day, you set your things you're thankful for, your wins for the day before, your 3 main priorities for the day.
Nice.
Each night you then review your wins of the day, what you've learned. Then you do a weekly review, daily sheets. And then you've got a monthly review as well. And that, since I started doing that maybe 2020 or 2021, my productivity skyrocketed. Just something as simple as that. Yeah. And following it religiously, like you say. And it's no coincidence you're doing massive things in business and you follow things like this. A lot of the people I've interviewed, and a lot of people that I know who are massively successful, they do things like this. They know the vision, they've got the goals, they're driven, they write it down, you said. Yeah. There's something about brain and sort of hand connection, isn't there? Body and brain connection, whatever they call it. Yeah. Actually writing stuff down. There's no good typing it, I don't think. I think writing it, there's something in that.
Yeah, totally.
I think that's a definite lesson for anybody listening. It can't be a coincidence that you do it, that I do it, that a lot of these hugely successful people do this. It cannot be a coincidence. Yeah. If you put that in the AI, that will be one of the metrics. If you want to be successful, this is what you need to do.
The thing is, if you don't define what success looks like, if you don't take the time and the trouble to work out what it is you want,
you used to feather in the wind, you're a feather in the wind, you just go from this place to this place, no direction, you're getting carried by the wind effectively on you. Intentions, everything, and I think I love that, and I love hearing that, and hopefully some of the listeners understand the importance of doing this for sure. I could talk to you for hours, to be quite honest, and maybe do a second one purely AI related, because I think it's fascinating. But maybe just to end on a question, what do you think the future holds for property investors, and maybe it's a little bit on the market, or well, in fact, a better question, as I know the listeners will be interested in. Where do you see the strategies in property that maybe the biggest wins are coming? That are maybe you get the question.
Yeah, totally. So this again might be something which feels quite abstract and it feels maybe unachievable, but it's not. I promise you, it's not. The biggest change in land value occurs when you get planning permission. Yeah, it's not, in my opinion. So James will talk about this. I know you've got lined up to speak to on another podcast. But land promotion, or whether you take it an option or a promotion, is basically where you take a small parcel of land, maybe 1 acre, 2 acres, 3 acres. Yeah, so we're not going big stuff here.
Yeah,
it's worth to the farmer or the landowner about 10 grand. It's agricultural land, and you transform it to something which is worth £500,000 quid. And what you do is you bet through either an option agreement or a promotion agreement that you can get planning permission, and it will probably cost you about 40 grand. So effectively, you're taking a 40 grand bet on an upside where you create 490 grand worth of value. And so as long as your win rate, so the number of times that you're right compared to the number of times that you're wrong, I think is better than 50-50, you'll make a lot of money. It's quite time consuming, it's quite technical, but again, you can bring in technical experts. And to me, that is the best way that I've seen to make money in property, because then you've got a choice. You can exit at that point if you want, or you can create further value by
building out yourself.
Both of which are fine. But the biggest change in value in property, full stop, occurs at the moment that you get that ticket. That is the cover. And that doesn't work so well on brownfield, because brownfield has intrinsic value. So if you gave me 5 barns and said, okay, get me a Class Q barn conversion on that, so effectively take it from agricultural into residential, then once again, that doesn't add the same amount of value, because what the barn's worth at the moment, maybe 100 grand, 200 grand, 300 grand, whatever the number is.
More than if it was just a field.
Bingo, which is worth 10 grand. And so therefore, in my view, finding strategies to partner with people who know what they're doing in that space is really, really, really valuable. We have 66 deals in play at the moment.
66
deals,
yeah.
66 deals in place at the moment, which we are moving through. And we do take external funding for it as well, and then share the upside. And our win rate is 83%. So.
And how long have you been doing that?
Since 2020.
A few years,
yeah. Since 2020. So so over that period of time. And even if I don't do another deal this year, we'll double our turnover to 2 million quid in that business, and we'll make £1 million profit off that. So it's a 50% net margin business, and that's with having a team of 5 full-time employees.
I came to the office, I remember. It's a nice office.
Yeah.
I mean, that's fascinating, and I think maybe the reason why a lot of people don't do that is the technical aspect to it, isn't it? Because it is, you can lose everything. And maybe if they don't have large-ish capital pots, then it's a lot to lose for some people. But that's why I know you sort of partner up and offering various things. So I'd advise, if you're interested in that, to speak to Ian or James or message them on social media. But yeah, I think it is a fascinating strategy, and I've never heard it phrased, it's the largest increase in value in property that you can get.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is. Yeah, that's factual. I've never thought of it like that. So if someone was looking to get into that, what would you say is the best way to do that?
I mean, it depends on your skill base. So if, let's assume you've got no skills in that space, like I had, and probably still have got no skills in that space, just to be crystal clear, it's partnering with someone, so whether that's us or whether that's someone else. But effectively, if you think about it, you need a strategy. So you need to know what type of land is likely to get planning permission. So in our world, we start with our planning team. So we've got qualified town planners come from Savills, really experienced guys. And they say, in Richmondshire, edge of settlement, in these 7 villages, if you target a piece of land here, and it meets these 3 criteria, we can get planning. So what our land searching team does, the guys in the office, is they do desktop research to identify those parcels of land. So we identify the land, we then market to those landowners, and then we send out the land guys to go and knock on the doors of those farmers where those bits of land are. It's like proper, like door,
salesy stuff.
Proper. Wow. So we've got 3 land guys who that's their job. They then agree heads of terms with the landowner, which basically says, we'll take the land on, we'll pay for it, but we want a quarter of the value of the land when it sells. So if it's worth £500,000 or £1 million, we get 125 to 250 grand. Our biggest upside has been 700 grand in terms of one deal. We then front the money, which is why we partner with investors, because we've got so many deals. And then you go on a journey which is between 1.5 and 3 years. So we put the planning application in, and if you win first time, you could be in and out in 15 to 18 months. And if you don't win first time, you end up in appeal, you could be there for up to 3 years. But we're not doing the sorts of land promotion where it's in for like 7 years. We're doing stuff which is allowable under today's policy. That's the key ingredient. So we can be in and out relatively quickly. But if you think about building a site now,
it's really clever, man. That's really clever. And I think you inject in all of your experience that you've had in all of your other businesses that became successful, you're automating. Well, question for you. So you mentioned research and we talked about AI. Was that research not? Could it not be done with AI?
Totally. So when I first set up the software solution for this, I was like, right, okay, there must be a way of doing image recognition across the whole of the UK, punch in these criteria, it identifies the site based from Google Maps. So far, there is not a product that I've been able to make work. And actually, the number of sites we need to identify is not so great.
I suppose it's not,
that the capital investment just for us has made it worth it. So the product doesn't exist at the moment, but as sure as ever, it will exist. 100%. But you're right. That's another great bit of predictive AI, and it's just then about layering on the data. So for example, if it's in flood zone 3, we don't look at it. Yeah. So what you want is
So when you've got your metrics, haven't
yeah,
you?
that's
It all makes a good deal, what makes
totally.
a bad deal.
Yeah, 100%.
Get it into the criteria, then it's searched for them, isn't it?
And it's a checklist. So we've learned, if it's in a national park, it's a no. If it's this, it's no. And we try to exclude. So what we crystallise down to is we've got a 2-person sign-off process where if they don't tell me, 2 different people don't tell me it's better than 70%, I don't do the deal.
Love it. Love it. We could keep going, but I'm conscious of the time. But one question I ask everybody at the end of the show is, the show's called The Rags to Riches Show. And ask everybody, what does being rich mean to you? Because you can be rich in different parts of your life, or multiple parts of your life. So that phrase, what's the first thing that comes to mind when, what does being rich mean to Ian Preston?
I mean, I feel rich in the sense that, I'm super lucky, I've been super blessed. I've got 6 wonderful children, I've got a fab wife, I live in a nice house,
So multiple businesses,
exactly. And the businesses are great. What gets me up in the morning and what makes me go, we were chatting about whether or not there's a time that we'd ever, hang up the boots, just, enjoy it and not have all the stress and the pressure and the bags and all the rest of it. But the truth is I love doing interesting work. Like I like problems. I like trying to solve them, and sometimes I solve them well and sometimes I've solved them terribly, as I've given you some examples today. No one hits home runs all the time. I've got as many failures as I've got successes. But yeah, I like solving interesting problems, and I love and I think we're very lucky to live in the time that we live in, Terry. Where all of these new tools are just available, like shit which just wasn't available 3 years ago. Now I can start combining these things and creating new tools, and I'm lucky because I'm in a position where I've got people who work within the organisations who are interested in solving these problems with me. So no, I mean, from that sense, I don't want for anything really.
Kenny, you are where you want to be.
Yeah, totally.
Already,
yeah. I mean,
that's good. It's a good place to be.
No,
I love that. And my view on that is similar. It's, being rich isn't just monetary.
Yeah.
There's a lot more to it. And if you've got loads of money but you've got no health, or you've got loads of money and you've got no family, or you've got loads of money and you've got no friends, money's irrelevant. So being rich to me doesn't just mean money, it's having everything.
Yeah.
I know you're a family man, you've got a good life, and you enjoy yourself, you do sport, you cycle and all sorts of things, don't you? And you do what you want kind of on your terms, which I think is what a rich life is. And I've really enjoyed the chat, and I think you're a fascinating, I've said this to you before, you're a fascinating guy, and I'd be interested to see where you are in 3 to 5 years actually, because we've known each other for, I don't know how many years, but it must be
10?
between sort of 7 and 10, and I've seen the evolution of Preston Baker, and I've seen all these other things that you're involved in, so it'll be interesting to see your journey over the next 3 to 5 years. If anybody wants to reach out, or anybody wants to follow you, or has any questions, or wants to just connect, really, what's the best way for them to do that?
LinkedIn is probably where I'm most active on
LinkedIn.
Social media. I tend not to bother too much. I am on Twitter and Facebook and all the rest of it, but I tend to for business and for people, if they're interested in what we do, then LinkedIn's the place.
LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, Ian, thank you very much. I really enjoyed that conversation, and thanks for coming on.
Pleasure.
Thanks a lot.
Cheers, Terry.